Donald Trump wants you to move on from talking about the Epstein files. He believes now that he has attempted to change the narrative that he said because he signed a bill to force the release of the Epstein files, they'll come out. Just stop talking about it. Look over there. But we know what is happening behind the scenes, and that is still the organized cover-up and redaction of Donald Trump's name in every single place it appears. And that is now being exposed by Donald Trump's own buddy, Dan Bongino, who he put at the FBI to help him cover up. But new leaked emails are revealing that that has always been the case, and it's blowing up in his face. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Bongino leaked about Donald Trump's Epstein cover-up in his emails, I want to start with what Robert Garcia just had to say about how we have to continue to put the pressure on the FBI and the DOJ because they want us all to just move on.
Well, again, the Oversight Investigation and the Oversight Committee is leading the Epstein investigation. And so our work is ongoing every single day. Let me just start by sharing also the difference. So we have a law now that's been signed by the president that is asking the DOJ to release the files. Incredibly important for all the members to be on record and for this to sail forward. We also have a subpoena that was passed by the Oversight Committee that forced the hand of all the release of these documents, including the Department of Justice, that we have been seeing over the last few weeks and months, and that will continue to produce documents. The difference is we know that the DOJ right now is somehow claiming there's going to be this new investigation or this kind of sham look at Democrats out of the Southern District of New York, which Pam Bondi, of course, announced recently. And there's concern that the language in the legislation speaks to there being a possible look at, well, we may not release documents if there is an active investigation going, which of course is just a deflection on behalf of the Department of Justice. The subpoena doesn't have that language. So even if Pam Bondi wants to use that language to slow down the release of documents, she can't do the same for the subpoena because it does not include that language. And so she has to release the documents and all of the files regardless of a sham investigation. And now there are two strong efforts to ensure that we get those. As far as what's next on oversight, we're now looking at the bank records. We're looking at what were the financial crimes that were happening. Who and what powerful men pay these enormous sums of money to rape and abuse women? And that's what's next for the committee.
It is important to remember, as Robert Garcia continues to remind us, that there has already been a subpoena out for the Epstein files before the bill was passed through Congress. The Oversight Committee has been requesting these materials from some time from the DOJ, from the FBI, to know all that Donald Trump has done in his cover-up. And they're pretending Donald Trump is trying to shift the narrative and say that they're only releasing the Epstein files because he told Republicans in Congress to. But it's not true. Donald Trump couldn't tell Republicans in Congress not to because the momentum was too strong, and now he's just trying to shift the narrative. And if you still believe, which I don't know why you would, anyone who needs a little swaying watching this, that Republicans don't, of course, want more information to come out, take a look at what happened when Eric Swalwell moved to subpoena Dan Bongino, who has been a pivotal player in covering up the Epstein files, and how Jim Jordan responded.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11, I move that the committee subpoena Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino to produce and testify what the director is unwilling to discuss and share with Congress, the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, including witness interview records, including FBI Forms 302, search warrant materials, records relating to the initiation of investigations, records relating to financial transactions and payments, evidence collected from wiretaps. The FBI director said today that they've already released these documents. Bongino has reportedly considered resigning from his position over the refusal to release the full Epstein files.
I'm delighted to see that my colleague can read, and I move to lay his motion on the table.
So the deputy director of the FBI, who has been intimately involved in the cover-up of the Epstein files, in the handling of the Epstein files, was subpoenaed to testify before Congress to just have some questions be asked and answered. If you're so transparent, if you have nothing to hide, surely that wouldn't be a problem. This is the same Dan Bongino who went on Fox and was essentially in tears, crying about how he has to work in his office all day. Oh, I have to go to work. I can't be just a bullshit podcaster. So maybe he'd like a break. Maybe he'd like some time in front of Congress, but Republicans said, no, how interesting. Maybe does it have something to do with the panic over his leaked emails that we see in this article right here? Dan Bongino scrambles to explain Epstein file email redaction. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino is on the defensive after the release of an email showing he'd been made aware of the Trump administration's sweeping redactions of Jeffrey Epstein files on his second day on the job. Bongino, 50, was appointed to the post in March, having caved out a career as a MAGA-friendly podcaster who regularly demanded the government's full and unredacted release of all documents relating to the late pedophile financier. But with the Trump administration having fought a months-long campaign to keep the file secret, which included a frantic scramble by the FBI last spring to make sweeping redactions, Bongino has since changed his tune with minimal explanation. The former law enforcement officer insisted in May, a month after the March and April redaction sprint, that the administration was taking its time with the materials in order to protect Epstein's victims. He had not publicly addressed the files since that time. But internal FBI emails published by Bloomberg over the weekend showed that he had been forwarded an email on March 18th, the day after he joined the Bureau, related to guidance on the types of redactions to apply to the Epstein files. After some questioned what that said about his role in the redactions, Bongino broke his months-long silence on the matter late Sunday to say the email was really just not that big of a deal. Folks, I entered on duty on March 17th. The emails in the chain you see forwarded to me at my request were sent before I began in my position, Bongino wrote on Twitter. I want to review what has been done before I entered on duty. It was a priority and, as you can see, they responded immediately. I'm glad that these emails are available for your review. He did not elaborate further on the redactions or what is in the files. However, the internal correspondence obtained by Bloomberg's FOIA files raises questions about Bongino's role in the, quote, special redaction project, as well as about the project itself. The documents show the Bureau scrambling over several months in the first half of 2025 to prepare Epstein-related records for potential release, running up almost $1 million in overtime for staff as the administration dithered over what to make public. After promising to release all the Justice Department's Epstein files during his campaign, Trump put Attorney General Pam Bondi in charge of the matter after his return to the White House. In February, Bondi further stoked anticipation of major revelations to come by telling supporters Epstein's client list was sitting on her desk. According to Bloomberg, FBI Director Kash Patel then ordered roughly 1,000 agents to the Bureau's Central Records Complex in Winchester, Virginia, for crash redaction training on what he dubbed the Epstein Transparency Project, or Special Redaction Project. Between March 17th and March 22nd alone, the Bureau paid $851,344 in overtime. From January to July, staff logged 4,737 overtime hours, more than 70% of which occurred in March, as agents worked nights and weekends. On May 10th, at this point, having apparently been aware of the redaction process for almost 2 months, Bongino wrote on Twitter, "There are voluminous amounts of downloaded child abuse material that we are dealing with. There are also victim statements that are entitled to specific protections. We need to do this correctly, but I do understand the public's desire to get the information out there." So Bongino was made aware of these redactions, which he didn't address for months, even though he knew his first day on the job that there was a special project to, as we know, take Donald Trump's name out and look just through the documents that were damaging to anyone but him. We know that's what happened. We know that's what the project was. We know that's what the focus of the administration was. We know what they wanted to do. They wanted to say, we combed through everything, now let's move on. Because if what Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are now saying is true, that they need to further investigate Bill Clinton or Larry Summers or anybody else, then it would make sense that they shouldn't have closed the investigation as they did months ago, because there would have been more to look into. So what were they spending all that time redacting? Because they didn't release anything new. What were they spending all that time scrubbing? It stands to reason It was Donald Trump's name, right? This is what we know right now. We know that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi told him that he was in the Epstein files. We know that Donald Trump was thinking about replacing Dan Bongino, that there is another deputy director of the FBI. So maybe Bongino got a little squeamish. Maybe he wasn't trustworthy in that position to be scrubbing Trump's name. All we know is that the cover-up continues to be exposed. And these emails are really telling a story of the effort to do so. This is an administration that labels itself tough on crime, but obviously it's anything but that. And Jasmine Crockett called it out here.
Absolutely. One of the things that we had actually talked about when we had a closed door meeting with the survivors earlier this year, along with the speaker, was the speaker said, "Hey, I'm committed to doing everything that I can." And then obviously he did nothing. But one of the things that we talked about in that closed door meeting was that we needed to expand the breadth of this investigation. And we didn't just need subpoenas that were coming from the oversight committee, but we needed some out of financial services as well, so that financial services could be digging in, because that is the equivalent of the specific committee that oversees Treasury. We know that there were signals because of the type of suspicious activity that was taking place as it relates to Epstein. We know in talking to survivors about how much money was kind of going in and out with wires internationally. And we also know that there seems to be a lot of shell corporations that have been set up not only in the United States, but internationally, a lot of shell and fake modeling agencies that these girls would kind of be run through. We also had been told that there had been a mechanism to make sure that they could get immigration papers that were not necessarily had not necessarily gone through the proper vetting and done correctly, as well as some fake marriages. So there's just a lot. And the thing is, you can't pretend that this sophisticated system was only reliant upon two people. Yes, these two people may have been at the top, but with the level of sophistication, I'm just not sure that there's still not activity that is going on. And that is why this matters even today. I know you went back to the 90s, and yes, you're right. There has been a miscarriage of justice for so many decades. But the question is, by ignoring this, are we still allowing for those same loopholes to make sure that children and women are being victimized today?
I am never surprised. I am always disgusted. That is the theme of the Trump administration and their many cover-ups of the Epstein files. The cover-ups that I care about aren't just that those that took place in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. I want to know what happened in the first Trump administration, and I want to know what happened under this Trump administration. I don't just want the Epstein files. I want the correspondence between all these people covering up. We're going to fight for that. We're going to talk about it every single day. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.